Now, I want to talk about what could have caused the power outages in Spain, France, and Portugal. This isn't definite, it's just my opinion. 1 month ago, I posted this. This shows geomagnetic G4 storms from the sun. And you can see this huge corona hole. I mean, this corona hole is massive. So I want to talk a little bit about this. As of now, Spain has declared a state of emergency. Around 8 hours ago, they had a full power outage, which means no Wi-Fi, no planes, but most importantly, it means no water, because you need electricity to pump water into people's homes. So it's a pretty big event. And I want to talk about what I think this could be, because the wording that they've used kind of doesn't make sense. They've said induced atmospheric events. So I want to quickly touch on induction, what that actually means. One of the other power grids said something around oscillating voltages. That really piqued my interest. So I want to discuss that as well. Now, over the last month, there has been a lot of solar activity. And the reason why this is that the sun is going through what's called its solar maximum. Now, every 11 years, the sun's magnetic poles change, north to south, south to north. So every 200,000 or 300,000 years on Earth, the magnetic poles change. The last pole change on Earth was 780,000 years ago. So back then, if you had a compass, it would have pointed to south. The north would have pointed to south. And that happens every 200,000 or 300,000 years on Earth. On the sun, it's every 11 years. And right now, we are going through a coronal polar reversal. And we're actually going through a corona solar maximum as well. And it's coincidental that they're at the same time. But what this means is much more solar activity. Now, I'm going to show you some pictures over the last month of this coronal hole that has grown. And it's insane. So just to give you an idea of the scale, you can fit 1 million Earths in the sun. The sun's 109 times wider than the Earth. So it's big, spherically, volumetrically, 1 million Earths in the sun. This coronal hole is 60 Earth widths. It's 60 times wider than Earth. This is huge. So you can imagine, over the last couple of months, I think there was 8 rotations of the sun where that hole, coronal hole, passed Earth. Now, when that happens, you've basically got less dense magnetic fields in that hole. They're like X-ray, it's X-ray vision that shows you those holes. What it means is you get solar winds that come out of those holes. Now, those solar winds contain charged particles. Now, they're protons and electrons from helium and hydrogen, because the sun's a nuclear fusion reactor. It basically fuses 2 hydrogen atoms to make helium. 1 + 1 is 2 on the elementary table. That's what everybody's trying to do on Earth now, recreate nuclear fusion. And so the charged particles are protons and neutrons, negative neutrons, positive protons from the hydrogen and helium. They come out as solar winds and they leave the sun. Now, obviously, some of those are going to come and hit Earth. So you've got a huge distortion in Earth's magnetic field, because these fields and particles that are coming, when you have a moving electric charge or a moving electric current, it induces a magnetic field. So you've also got another thing is CMEs, or coronal mass injections, where you have huge magnetic fields hitting the Earth. Now they are going to stretch and squeeze the Earth's magnetic field. And we know about that, and that's been happening forever. But I want to say, or I want to postulate something else that I've discussed before, which is in line with something called electricity pylon harmonic resonance. Now, if you look around the planet, there are electricity pylons with these huge cables connected hundreds or thousands of kilometers. Here in Mexico, they're on every single street, just electricity cables running over the street. So in Spain, everywhere, you've got these electricity cables that go from house to house to house. Now, if you were to look as a big picture of Earth, these electricity lines, they run thousands and thousands or hundreds and hundreds of kilometers long. They're coils or loops around the Earth, essentially. So my belief is that they act as antennae. So if a wave, an electromagnetic wave, comes into contact with that, it can cause lots of different resonant issues with the electricity pylons. Now, those electricity pylons back at the grid are set to operate in Spain at 50 hertz. So somewhere in Spain, there's a motor rotating at 50 cycles a second. It's pushing out an alternating current, AC current, at 50 times a second. But coming back, that voltage alternates, goes up and down, actually, sinusoidally, positive and negative voltage by up and down, alternating, oscillating sinusoidal current. Now, that power grid is set specifically to accept 50 hertz. If anything comes back through the pylons, through the electricity lines, there's difference 50 hertz, which can easily happen through the solar winds, because you've got charged particles, which is essentially plasma, hitting the Earth's magnetic field, inducing different magnetic and electric currents than the Earth normally sees, and hitting those electricity pylons. Now, that's why I posted about this a month ago. Just a week after that, or 2 weeks after that, Puerto Rico had a complete blackout, and that was completely in line with these corona holes. So that was my thinking. However, I looked at the coronal holes today, and they've passed. They've got smaller and they've disappeared. So it takes around 2 days for the solar winds to hit Earth, roughly. The particles move around 600, 700 kilometers a second. The sun's 150 kilometers away, so 150 million kilometers away. So it takes a couple of days or a day. Now, NOAA, where I get all my information from about the sun, they inform the grids when you have these coronal mass injections, solar flares, or when you have huge amounts of solar wind and charged particles and plasma coming to Earth. So they would have informed the Spanish grid, the Portuguese grid, and the French grids about this. And they've got time. They've got 1 or 2 days to look out for it. But I'm just wondering, I very rarely believe in coincidences. And the fact that this huge coronal hole was there a few days ago, and now you've got these huge problems, potentially, I think, is one option that really needs to be looked at. And it doesn't make sense to me to use induced atmospheric, because induction would either mean a magnetic field inducing an electric field, or an electric field inducing a magnetic field, which is something I know a little bit about with quantum field theory and electromagnetism. So I'm kind of surprised they use those words and then rule out the sun or solar effects. So what can you do about this? Obviously, something so big and so powerful, it's very difficult. The only thing you can really do, and this is not scare tactics, because of this solar maximum is happening now in 2025, where the sun's the poles are reversing. I think this is going to continue for another 2 or 3 years until the solar maximum reduces. So the best thing to do is, just in case this happens again, there is no downside to having bottles of water, tinned fruit, tinned food indoors. Absolutely no downside, and the upside's massive. It's the only thing I can really think of, because the electric grid companies, they should be managing this themselves. Some of them do it excellently. There was a G4 storm in 2024. I think it was in Quebec, where they managed the storm perfectly, the electric grid, and that was kind of set as a. So I think it's down to them. It's very hard for us to manage that, but we can look after ourselves a little bit, and that's what I think maybe where this solar storm, where this blackout in Spain has come from.